Hey everybody, welcome to episode 31. Today is an interview with Pawel Margacz, who is a senior VFX and 3D artist at DR, a 505 game studio. He has worked on video game titles like Battle Islands, Gwent, and Robocraft, with experience at game studios like Climax Studio and CD Projekt Red. Pawel also runs under the pen name 1MAFX with a popular YouTube channel for FX tutorials and breakdowns. Let's dive into this amazing interview. Here we go.
Welcome to the Real-Time Visual Effects Podcast, the place to hear from some of the video game industry's most seasoned artists and up your game. Listen in on how you can learn and grow as a VFX artist, discover your own wizard, and network with hundreds of other talented magicians in the real-time visual effects community. Here is your host, Travis McCallum.
Hey, good morning, Pawel. Thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
Hey, Travis. Thanks for the invitation. Not too bad, actually. It's okay here.
That's awesome. You had mentioned that you had a little child who just laid down for a nap and you're hoping it doesn't wake up screaming. So crossing fingers that you get a smooth session here.
Yep, finger crossed.
How old is he or she?
His name is Luke. He will be 2 in a week time. Valentine's baby. So yeah, just about a week.
Oh, goodness. That's a love child for you. Pawel, I want to jump into all of the awesome effects that you've been working on with different games, but I want to start at the very beginning. How did you get started in visual effects?
Right. So I started a little bit probably different than a lot of people because I went to university when I learned how to do a little bit of everything. That was like animation, rigging, even rendering, and there was some modeling part as well, and just general knowledge about the game design. I got a job basically at Climax Studios before I managed to finish my university. I've been with them for a couple of years, but after first project I worked with them, it was like a very small game for PlayStation Vita, and after the project I managed to jump in between all of the aspects of the game dev. There was material addition, and there was some animations, some modeling, and they asked me if I want to try to do some VFX for their major project at the time. And I said, why not? So after the small project, they put me on the big project. Yeah, this is where I actually learned how to do VFX. The team was amazing. There was like 6 people, and I really enjoyed my time there.
That's cool, man. It sounds like you had a bit of a traditional route getting into game development and learning about all the aspects of it, and then eventually getting pulled into visual effects because there was a need there. So I'm curious, thinking back to like when you first decided to go to college, did you know that games is where you wanted to be? What was kind of that inspiration at the very beginning that said, yes, I want to make these cool environments or these cool characters, these cool props? Where did that journey start?
When I actually went to uni, I applied for the game design course. And to be honest, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was pretty sure that I wanted to do something in games, and it was the art side of it. So to be honest, if I would end up being a character artist, prop artist, environment artist for games, then I'll be happy as well. But it turns out I kind of like problem solving a lot more than any other aspect. So that was either tech or VFX.
Was there a game that you played growing up? I'm guessing you enjoyed playing video games that really kind of inspired you there.
Oh yeah, I played a lot of games early on. Oh my God. Yeah, World of Warcraft, you name it. There was like a lot of games. And my parents bought me a PC when I was like very young, like 6 or 7. I played a lot of games, and I definitely think games were like a major influence for me to actually, start thinking about games as a career. Although no one actually believed me. It was more like, why are you wasting your life playing those games? But yeah, I just thought I just wanted to make them at some point in my life. And yeah.
You said you played World of Warcraft. What class were you? And Alliance or Horde?
Right, so I'm going to tell you, you're not going to believe me. So it was hard, definitely hard. However, I had every class. I played Mage, I played Rogue. Rogue mainly because I really enjoyed Arena, Mage because I enjoyed Raids as well. However, when I noticed they need a tank, then I built a tank. But the tank was Warrior, it was not Paladin. But yeah, I had to stop because it was too addictive.
I can totally relate, and I think many of our listeners have at least played World of Warcraft in one of its many expansions. So it's always cool to hear what people's fantasies and origin stories are, but you seemed like somebody who was whatever the guild needed, albeit.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
All right. Now we've been working for a couple years at companies like Climax Studios. Talk to me about some of your favorite projects that you've been able to work on. And if you had to pick one, which one was it?
It's very difficult because I work on many projects, especially now with the freelance stuff as well. And I noticed that the projects come secondary, right? I don't need to be working on any flashy projects or anything like. I mean, obviously, it's a nice addition, and it's definitely, really just good to work on really big projects, and those are actually are a massive success. Although I think the major reason is just the team, really. So again, it just doesn't matter what the project is. I think the team comes first, and if I enjoy working with that team and the team is very passionate, then the favorite project, I'm not sure really. I mean, the most fun I had was with Battle Islands Commanders, because it was a type of the game is that not Clash of Clans. It's a battle royale, basically, or Clash Royale type. And I remember as a team, we've been spending a lot of time playing the game and just, teasing each other. Yeah, that was really good.
Nice, man. What do you think some of the big trends in the VFX space are right now, especially going into 2021?
I think there is a split, and there is either 2D stuff and there is procedural things as well. So it's definitely Houdini and maybe Substance. Well, at least I'm trying to push Substance Designer, but there's definitely Houdini and Blender as well. And there are 2D people as well. I think there's Jason and Alex, they're doing like amazing stuff. So I think there is a split somewhere in the middle. But the trends that will be going in 21, I think the 2D will be still very, very strong because those effects looks amazing. But I think, Houdini, Emergent maybe as well, they'll be pushing a lot into the 21, I think, as well.
Cool, man. Right now, in visual effects, what do you think the biggest challenges that we're facing as artists and as an industry as a whole?
Okay, so I experienced that actually firsthand. So definitely there are hiring issues, and working alone as a VFX artist on the project is a big one as well. And I think those two come together basically because it's very difficult to hire for the VFX position, mainly because studios looking for someone experienced, but it's difficult to get experience if you are just starting out. So I think the main difficulties is basically to hire someone and to receive like a really good training to become VFX artist, mainly because I think the resources that are out there, they're kind of for the mid VFX artists and for the advanced stuff. But if you are just starting out and you have no idea how to create meshes in any software or even Houdini now, or how to create textures, how to, put those effects together, I think it's very, very difficult to, get your hands on VFX. I know that Jason started a product that tends to focus on people who are just starting out, and I think it's a really good product. But I think that it's just not enough resources out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, like, with the hiring issues, why more companies don't try and hire in-house. So take existing artists and build on their skill sets. And do you have a comment on that? Because that was kind of where your boat was, right? You weren't VFX, but you were inside a company. And then they taught you how to be an FX artist, or they gave you space to learn on your own. Is that kind of the story?
Yeah, definitely. The only issue back then was the team was established. So the team had already like 5 or maybe 7 VFX artists, right? So there was actually someone to train me up, and there was actually time to do that, right? But for example, now, if the studio is always missing a VFX artists, right? Because there's usually like, I don't know, 3 or 4 positions open, right? So that means to me that, first of all, they don't have time to train anyone, and they require someone to help those VFX artists who are already in the studio, right? So taking someone on board would mean that the existing artist would have to train that person, and there's not always the time for that. So I think that might be the main problem, really.
And I do see it being extremely high barrier to entry, because as a normal artist, maybe you're focused just on the art side. Or if you're a programmer, you're just focused on the code side. But VFX artists really fall in that technical art field where you got to be a master of both. And it is just a really big barrier to entry.
Definitely. And then, to be honest, it's not only that. It's just you need to know how to model. You need to how to make UVs. I mean, even the basic stuff, right? But once you go into this rabbit hole of, modeling, UVing, texturing, materials, procedural stuff now, or even drawing 2D stuff, that's a massive amount of material that you have to go through as a VFX artist. And I tend to go all in. So if I want to learn how to make meshes, then I want to do some modeling stuff. If I want to learn how to make UVs, I want to learn how to make complicated UVs as well. So it's not just learning the basics, but it's learning a little bit deeper on the subject, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. So let's flip that around then. We know that these are challenges, especially in the hiring space. But as a VFX artist, what is the biggest contribution that we do for our teams? Why is our job such a big deal? If I were to think about kind of like our global mission to the world, what is it we're set out there to do, and what's our purpose? We're philosophically thinking here, but...
Fair enough. So I think we got actually few purposes. I mean, every discipline's got its own difficulties and stuff, but as a VFX artist, we tend to, especially in the beginning of the projects, we are involved in the technical aspect. Yeah, like visuals in general. I mean, look through like any trailers that are coming up nowadays. There's always some sort of explosions. There's always some sort of projectiles, and majority of the time in the trailers you actually see the VFX. Obviously not for every project, but I would say vast majority there are a lot of VFX on the screen. So the importance of VFX in terms of marketing is massive. But not only that, I mean, many VFX are mainly in the games too as a language and as a design choices as well. For example, you got 2 characters, you want to see and recognize what the enemy characters is doing, like in terms of muzzle flashes or spells in League of Legends or Dota. It's a very important part from design perspective as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Really, VFX does touch every part of a project, and it's not just limited to the in-game part, but also for marketing, like you said. I thought that was super insightful. Now that you've been working as a VFX artist for a while, I'm curious, what do you look for in the visual effects of your own work and the work of others that maybe you're mentoring or trying to learn from, and being able to differentiate what a good effect is from a great effect? And I know each effect has its own nuances, but if you had an example, let's say an explosion or a magical spell.
As an artist in general, we go through the journey of discovery and trying to improve our art in general. And I think the most important thing that I've learned 2 years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it was timing. I think timing is very important because timing could make the effect look a little bit weird. And basically most of the time, if I look at the VFX and everything looks cool, like, the glow is there, the shape, the colors and everything is there, but something is not right, it's usually the timing. So I think the most important part of the VFX, in my opinion, is the timing, and then everything else comes secondary, if that makes sense.
So how do people nail timing right then? Like, how do you learn how to do good timing?
Yeah, see, so this is the difficult part, because it's practice. So we're still going into this rabbit hole. Yeah, it's practice, so it takes time. I've been doing VFX for a very long time. I don't know how long, maybe 7 or 10 years, about 10 years now. but I was jumping in between, disciplines every now and then. But I would have to say that I focused on VFX in the past 4 years. And, I still discovering stuff. I mean, if you look at my VFX, many of them still look weird and, I'm still learning. So when I probably look back at my VFX in 2 years' time, I'll just feel embarrassed a little bit because the mistakes I made. So it's a journey. So the thing is that you have to start. So start somewhere and just keep going. And in time, you will discover timing, you will discover how to make great textures and everything else that it's, to do with the VFX, I think, personally.
That's great advice, man. Thinking back to where you were, 7-10 years ago, what do you wish you had known when starting out that you know now?
I think I touched on this already. I think in the beginning, was starting in the industry, I always wanted to work on amazing projects. I always thought working on my favorite titles like Diablo, World of Warcraft, all those really cool games. I think that was the most important part for me. But then I actually started working in the industry and I noticed that the best part that I enjoy is actually the team. So I think if the team is right and there's a lot of, bouncing back ideas and, getting involved into design conversations as well, and having an influence basically on every aspect of the game and, just having fun working on the project. I think that would be it.
How do you learn, Pawel? What's your learning style?
I'm not sure, really. I mean, if I want to learn something new, then...
Maybe you can think back to when you were in school, and I give you some examples. Some people are really great visual learners. Some prefer to be doing it kinesthetic, or even audio. They have to listen to things over and over to get them down.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I tend to start with the tutorials. I mean, obviously, nowadays there is always tutorials somewhere about subject that you want to learn. So I tend to start with the tutorial just to explore what the tools are and how to use basic tools within a subject. So let's say explosions. I picked up the Applied Houdini course, for example, just to have an understanding, what the tools are and basic terminology. But after that, I'm not trying to replicate what was created in a tutorial. I tend to just go and create stuff on my own using the tools that have been presented to me. I discovered that in myself that this is the best way I learn. Obviously, I do tutorial for a very long time. So let's say tutorial takes, let's say 5 hours, right? So roughly you might say that after 20 hours, you will go through the tutorial and recreate what's in this tutorial. But I tend to take a lot longer, mainly because I actually like to problem solve. If I'm stuck, like anything, if it's, some programming stuff I'm doing, Substance Designer, Explosion, Houdini, then I tend to just go in and try to solve the problem on my own for a good couple of days. And then if I can't solve it, I search for help, using Google. But throughout this process, just going deep and trying to fix the problem yourself, I think you learn a lot. And I think this is very important part when it comes to VFX, because we're doing a lot of problem solving in the project anyway. And, training yourself to problem solve on daily basis, I think it's a very good practice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love using tutorials as introductionary concepts to new ideas. But oftentimes when you're following a tutorial, it may be a couple months, if not a couple years old. And the version of the software you're using, say Houdini, may have upgraded. And some of those steps that you're following in a tutorial may have changed to whatever the current version is. So that's exactly where those problem-solving skills come in, where you're figuring out like the node graphs and what, certain little areas are called. You got to figure that out on your own. Like, nobody's going to handhold you.
Yeah, I also noticed that many people nowadays, they tend to take a shortcut, and instead of actually trying to solve the issue themselves, they just, Google stuff. But I think and this is just my opinion, I think they don't realize that they actually not doing the practice, and they not doing this in the way they supposed to be doing in terms of, practicing problem solving skills. So when people are actually getting stuck, they don't know what to do, and on the live project there's no one to help them, especially now. If you are a solo VFX artist on the project and you're stuck, what are you going to tell your lead? It can't be done. It's just not a way to do games, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have definitely been guilty of, instead of trying to solve a problem, just jump onto the forums or the Discord and ask for help. Sometimes it's a good time, sometimes it's not. I disagree that Googling answers is not a good method for problem solving. I think even for programmers, you can't be expected to remember every single line of code. So I see Google and the internet as a whole as a great reference sheet to be able to fall back on.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, sorry, I just want to clarify that. What I meant is that try to solve it yourself. And if you still cannot solve it, for, I don't know, certain period of time, then, go Google it, because I Google myself. But the first thing I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to, resolve it myself.
Pawel, do you have any role models, VFX or not, individuals or companies that have really inspired and influenced you in your own work? I know you had mentioned World of Warcraft, but are there any other ones that stand out?
I think the League of Legends team is very talented. They do amazing stuff, and their visuals are really, really good. Same things with Dota. Obviously, Blizzard, like people working at Blizzard are amazing. But I think I might be biased because I really like their products. What else? I think I've played Control as well. And I think there's a few people that work on Control that actually came from the film industry. So I'll be interested to see once it starts shifting. So I think we might get a lot more people from the film industry jumping ship into the games. So I'll be interested to see what they're gonna bring into the table. So yeah, Control. Yeah, I really like the Control. So whoever work on Control, great stuff.
I discovered you for your work on the real-time visual effects forums, where you started promoting your YouTube channel. Some of my favorite videos was that sphere break in the material editor, and also the character setup tutorials for your effects. Could you talk to me a little bit about why you started this YouTube channel and what you hope to accomplish with 1MAFX?
Well, to be honest, I started only because whenever I discovering something, I wanted to show it to people how to make those, mainly because, like I mentioned, there is a shortage of VFX artists in the industry, and I worked alone for a couple of years now, and it's just not ideal way of working. So I would like more people to get interested into VFX. So I'm not focusing on views or anything like that on my YouTube channel. I'm just, trying to release tutorial on regular time, on regular schedule, and try to get more people involved into, making basic stuff that I struggled with in the beginning of my career. So that was textures, simple meshes, and just basic of the VFX. So that was the main reason. But then I noticed within myself, I think that was when my son was born, 2 years ago, that I suddenly started liking helping people, which is weird. And I noticed in myself that I start enjoying this process. And especially when someone drops a comment like, hey, your tutorial helped me a lot, and, helped me understand how to do stuff. I really like those comments, and I noticed that those comments tend to push me forward, and I don't mind just spending time making those tutorials. Obviously they are very rough around the edges because I kind of just started them, but I'm hoping that I'm going to improve my process in the long term, and I hope people will still enjoy those videos.
That is amazing. I'm so glad that doing this videos, tutorials, and engaging with like-minded artists has really created this impact in your own life and your own career to be inspired by other people's comments. Thanks for sharing that, Paul.
But yeah, it's a weird one. To be honest, I have no idea how it started. And the only thing that I can, go back in my head in time, it was actually, I think it was my son. Something switched in my brain and I start getting enjoyment from helping people. So it might sound selfish because it seems like I'm doing that for myself, although I kind of feel like I want to, help those people, especially those starting at the, starting with the VFX as a career choice.
I feel like I should just call you Papa Paul from now on. You're like you're like the father, along with like Andreas, of us VFX folks. So lead us.
Oh well, we'll see how it goes.
Hey, man. So as part of your VFX toolkit, I know you use a lot of tools like Substance Designer and Houdini. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you feel like has been the most powerful and impactful tool in your day-to-day workflow today, whether that be in creating your textures or so and so.
I think as a VFX artist, you have to understand that you will be changing your workflow every now and then. And I think every couple of years, there's a new software coming up and you kind of have to learn it because it changes industry, like Houdini now. I mean, Houdini been there for a while now, but I think in the past 3 years, it's starting to being adopted by a lot of game studios and film studios as well. So back in the day, it was Maya, 3ds Max for a very long time, and now it's Houdini and Substance. Obviously, I tend to throw Photoshop into the mix because I very often tweak my textures in Photoshop after Substance, adding additional details. But I think Houdini and Substance at the moment are the most important part. Houdini for the, mesh creation and just procedural stuff and realistic stuff as well, like smoke and fire and explosions. And for the stylized stuff, I tend to just stay with the material stuff in the engine with the mixture of, textures from Substance.
That's cool, man. Working in studio and also in freelance, what's the comparison for you? How do they differ?
Yeah, I'm a weird freelance artist because if you look through my portfolio or LinkedIn, I tend to stay with the studio for a very long time. So I've been freelancing for, let's say, 3 or 4 years now. I think roughly about 3 or 4 years now, but I tend to stay with the studio for a very long time. So I usually have like a main client, which in this case is 505 Games. So I am with them for like 7 years now, but I started freelancing for like 4 years. So I like to have like a full-time client, and then I tend to get another clients for about 6 months, because obviously I don't want to overdo it, but for roughly 6 months, I tend to, help people with their projects. It's mostly indie games, although it might shift in 21 now. Yeah, definitely it's going to shift in 21 now. So yeah, I'm just, I think I'm a weird freelancer because I tend to stay with clients for a very long time. But as a freelancer, if you look at the other freelancers, they just, switch clients or have multiple clients throughout the year, if that makes sense. I think the main difference between studio and the freelance is that, in the studio, you've got this security, although I'm not sure if it feels like security, right? Because you have like a permanent position and you don't have any specific end dates to your employment.
Ah, you mean job security?
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought you were talking about like police, watching the doors, like, no, cannot enter.
No, like a job security, and you've got all other benefits. But as a freelancer, you tend not to get those.
Do you imagine also, that like maybe the trade-off there is now you can command higher rates and get paid more potentially?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, that's one of the aspects. But I switched to freelance mainly because I kind of like to work on multiple projects. And when you're employed by the company, obviously there are differences between, various countries, but the usual deal is that you cannot work for other companies because there is a conflict of interest. But as a freelancer, I think I tend to work for multiple companies and on multiple projects because, I find it joy, working on realistic project and then taking additional contract in a stylized project, if that makes sense. So I tend not to take two contracts that are within the same style. I tend to jump, across from realistic to stylized, and that's how I pick project nowadays.
So what makes a successful contractor or a successful freelancer? If somebody wanted to get started and branch out and start freelancing, how do they know if they're doing well?
I think having like a very rich portfolio, it's definitely a must, because obviously no one's going to hire VFX artists without the portfolio. Track record might be a good indication as well, but obviously that requires experience. But nowadays, to be honest, I don't think a lot of freelancers, especially in VFX, they need to have a lot of projects they worked on, right? So I think like having a really good portfolio, I think is very important, and especially specialized portfolio, right? So, like if you have various stuff in your portfolio, let's say you got realistic, stylized, but you only got like a basic stuff there, then you might struggle to find a freelance contract. But if you just focus on one of those aspects, and you'll have a lot of examples of your work, then you might have a higher chances of getting hired. I think good indication is that if you are getting messages or emails, right? And as a VFX artist, I think you should be getting a lot of them nowadays. I don't have a indication what the amount would be, but I think if you are not getting at least 5 per week, then you might keep doing your portfolio, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of all of these artists that are on, say, a social network like LinkedIn, and recruiters are knocking on their door saying, hey, would you like to leave your company and come to ours? Or, hey, are you available for work? And not just like big studios that are looking for like contractors, but also like little indie companies. Obviously, they typically can't pay much, if any, but they need VFX for their games too.
Yeah, definitely. I think, with the pay, you can negotiate, and I think you should negotiate, because we as artists, we just tend to agree on whatever pay is. But I think it's, especially if you're doing the freelance, right? Because you need to take a lot of stuff into account, like your software, your hardware, your profit margin, and all those kind of things as well. So, and nowadays, because there is a shortage, you actually have an advantage. So you can ask for a little bit more. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, I know you've been working at DR Studios, and you've been intimately involved in the Battle Islands franchise for a couple of years. I was wondering if you could talk about how the evolution of your effects have gone through the various sequels, expansions. What are they?
So I think we've done, when I joined the studio, we've been doing like a Battle Islands 2.0. It's like a mobile game in the Clash of Clans style. And the next project that we worked on was Commanders. Really enjoyed on that project, amazing team, and we had really good laugh working on that title. So we just, in terms of VFX, in the Commanders, there's a lot more classes and a lot more characters. So developing actually like a VFX pipeline for the title was very important. And I was, I think there was another VFX artist at the time, but he quit like a halfway project, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. But we developed like a pipeline essentially. So, do you want me to talk about the pipeline?
You can talk through the pipeline if you want. And I'd be curious to know if there was like one effect that is maybe in the game right now that you were super proud of making. And if somebody were playing the game right now, you'd be like, I did that effect. Which one would it be?
I think I made like all of the effects in the game, or most of them, like good 90% of them. So that would be very difficult to...
they're all your babies. They're all your babies.
Pretty much. But I think what was really cool in that project, that in the beginning, we laid out the pipeline and we decided that we're not going to render, each explosion or each effect. We're just going to separate those into elements, and then we're going to mix them together in the engine. So for example, we did like 2 or 3 different fiery explosions, 2 or 3 different smoke types, and then we just blend them in together in the game, creating I don't know, let's say 50 explosions from those resources, if that makes sense, and that sped up the process massively.
Yeah, I think the technical concept is kit bashing, right? So taking bits and pieces and just combining them into new pieces. It's like alchemy almost in a way.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about higher ed. I know you went to Bradford University in Westshire, UK for a BA in design for computer games. Mm-hmm. What were some of the highlights and the lowlights of the school experience? And was it worth the money?
Hard to tell, really. I mean, it depends, right? Because obviously I'm not I've not been born in England, in the UK. So for me, it was worth it, mainly because you get the degree, right? So it allowed me to, although I have not traveled, but I could travel if I wanted to, right? So for example, getting like a visa to US or any other country would be a lot easier for me. And back in the day, I was actually thinking that I will do that a lot. However, I decided to stay and I just travel within the UK between the studios. But I think a visa is very important, and I think degree might help with the with the visa in general if you're planning to travel. In terms of career choice, and taking university into account, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know what would happen if I wouldn't go to the university, right? So maybe my life would be different. But is it necessary? Probably not, to be fair. And I think there are different rates for the university when it comes to US and the UK and rest of the world. So I don't think it's worth the money. If I have to think about it, I don't think it's worth the money. The only worth part that I think it's actually worth it was for me actually is that the variety, right? So I managed to learn a lot of different stuff, and like every aspect of the game development, right? And it allowed me to choose later on in my career, right? So if I'll pick VFX from the start, then maybe 4 years down the line, I'll be thinking, maybe I should try to be environment artist. Maybe I should do props and other things, right? However, because I experienced those early in my career, later on I've been able to dedicate most of my time and actually specialize in VFX. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you don't know what you want to do, I think university might be a good place to start. However, if you are 100% sure that you want to focus on either, environment art, prop, characters, or VFX, then just, choose your path and just stay in it.
I don't know most teenagers who are just getting out of high school know what they want to do with their lives. And often we say the age of adulthood is 18. But the truth is, a lot of people, they're still trying to find their place in the world. And here in the US, at least, it's like your 20s is about discovery and exploration and, finding out who you are. So from that kind of perspective, if games is like an area you want to start with, then jumping into the university and becoming that generalist to find your niche is definitely the right way to go. But I would be curious to know if any of our listeners, they know of anybody who knew in high school or before, this is exactly what I'm going to do with my life, and they pursued it with 100% power.
I think it's a very difficult decision, to make, because obviously when you're a teenager and getting into a debt, it's not ideal. It's definitely not something that you want to do, especially if you don't know what you want to do in life. And choosing game art, career, it's very difficult in general. So I'm not sure if going making decision early on, it's a good idea. I would, if I'll be back in the day, if I'll be teenager again, and I'll have to, I'll know that I want to work in games, I'll probably do a couple game jams and, go into those meetups now and spend a lot of time, like I want to say like 6 months, right, within those circles and see if I enjoy it and to see if it's actually for me. And I'll probably make decision based on that rather than going blindly into, university, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's such a great point. There are so many alternative methods to learn game development and visual effects here in 2021. And, maybe back in 2003, things may have been different. One of the things that really stands out to me is I think more and more on this question of, is higher ed worth it? And I think a lot of it is with partnerships with existing game studios. So if you being in the UK and knowing, all right, here are the game studios that are in the local area, and if I go to college, it could lead to an internship. So I can start networking with those different game studio heads and start building a portfolio through those connections. Maybe then it can be worth it.
Yeah, I think definitely. Although it's very difficult to actually, get that deal for the universities, I think, because that would mean that they have to guarantee there will be like a, couple really good people finishing the course. So I'm not sure really. I think, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a good deal, but it's very almost impossible to strike, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one can wish. All right, Paul, are you ready for the lightning round questions? Quick and easy, just like making a visual effect.
Yeah, sure.
What is a perfect one-day getaway in Marston, Mortain, Bedford, UK, and the surrounding area?
This is like a countryside, and it's in between two medium-sized cities. So I tend to just go out for a walk in the forest, and there's like a two or three lakes, I think, around my house, like 10-minute walk from my house. So, just getting relaxed and going for a walk in this area, I think it might be good 1 hour or 2 hours to spend. And there's actually, to go around the lake, it takes like 2 or 3 hours. So it might be like a good time to spend, especially during the weekend.
Especially during COVID as well.
Yeah.
And you get the added benefit of exercising for a healthy body, healthy mind with your endorphins. But as an FX artist, you also get to observe nature. So you get to learn about liquids and wind and foliage. You're in a great spot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just a nice way to, relax, I think, personally.
What video game or app are you using on your phone that is the most fun?
Okay, lightning round, you said. I tend to not to use my phone for, any of those. I just think I use it as a utility. So I think I'll go like Instagram and a couple apps installed. Or whenever I'm going for a hike, I'm just using an app to, find my way into a destination, Google Maps, but not really as a tool for gaming, I would say. Most fun.
Hey, GPS app is perfectly legitimate, man.
Yeah, most fun. Google Maps, there you go.
What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
Ooh, okay, so, right. I eat a lot of risotto. I don't know. I actually know why. Me and my partner, we bought this equipment. It's called Thermomix. And people, when I describe it to people, they never believe me. But it's a kind of like a cook in one, basically. So you throw all your ingredients into this one machine, and it does the meal for you. And
I think we call really those a blender in the US.
Right, but this is like a specialized. It's called Thermomix. So if you Google it, you can find out more about it. I'm not trying to sell it, but I just think it's really, really good in terms of what it does.
So what kind of things do you throw in it?
Like again, risotto. You can do pasta. You can do salads and all those kind of stuff. And you got like a just big display on it, and it's got recipes recipes there as well. And you can sync it with your online app, web app essentially. You can order even ingredients from the supermarket through the app. So yeah.
What is your favorite book or podcast you've listened to recently?
I listen to a lot of stuff. So I've got Audible subscription. and I just pick books randomly. So whenever I work and I can listen something in the background, I think I really enjoy Martian audiobook. I listen to your podcast, obviously. A little bit of Joe Rogan for fun. Yeah.
What is your favorite video game visual effect that you're jealous of that is not your own?
Ooh, okay, so that will be majority of stuff that comes from League of Legends team. Definitely Lost Ark VFX. So this is I think it comes from Asia. This MMO that will hopefully coming out to from Western audience as well, but I can't wait for it. They just got amazing stuff in terms of VFX. So I think I would say League of Legends. Yeah, Diablo as well. I love Diablo. So Diablo, League of Legends, and Lost Ark.
I'm just saying Diablo 4 team is hiring, so you want to get in on that.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Best advice for a first-time visual effects artist or people looking to get into the industry?
Learn how to be patient. I think patience, yeah. Because you need to stay, this is a long game, and you need to stay in it for a long time. So develop patience and problem-solving skills, I think, yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Very much.
What are you most excited about for the future of visual effects?
I'm not sure, really, because people tend to get away from VFX rather to go into VFX. So I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I hope that a lot of people from films actually will get into game VFX and game engine, VFX in general, because I think there's a lot of stuff they can teach us. And there's a lot of stuff they can actually inspire us about as well, because they tend to work with a massive amount of details, and maybe they could inspire us game VFX artists to make some VFX that are actually closer to films, if that makes sense.
One area that I see a lot of that happening is in Unreal's cinematics. With TV shows like The Mandalorian, a lot of film VFX people are using tools like Unreal to create real-time visual effects. So seeing that development in the cinematic space is super amazing. That crossover with game engines and movies.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really cannot wait for more people to get into, Unreal Engine, especially from the film industry. Although it sounds quite scary, because some people might say, "Oh, they're gonna steal our jobs" and all those kind of stuff. But to be honest, there's just too many jobs right now. So yeah, I don't mind. Bring them in.
Paul, what question do you never get asked that you wish you were asked more often?
I think nowadays mostly I get messages from people asking how to, where to start, and just a general guidance when it comes to VFX. And I think nowadays maybe people should focus as well on having a balance in life. So not only focusing on your job and how to make more money essentially, but I think it would be nice to get some questions, how to relax and how to get a balanced life. Because I tend to sign up for a bunch of stuff. I do hiking, I do camping, I do jiu-jitsu as well. So I tend to, every year I'm just trying to get on something new and see if I like it. The worst thing about me is that I like everything. So I tend to do all of those. So finding time is difficult. But yeah, just general question, how to get a balanced life maybe. That'll be, because I think I might have some ideas. I think I might be wrong.
So how are you going to manage your work, your baby, your partner, your family, and everything else in between?
Exactly. That's a difficult part. So I'm not sure. It's a very difficult question. Just make sure you're spending your time in the places where you want it to spend. I think, I do play games nowadays, but I tend to have like a very rigid schedule. So for example, I only allow myself to play 1 hour or half an hour every day, and maybe 2 hours during the weekend. And I split my time between my family, my 2 jobs, my passion, and my relaxed time as well. Passion, I mean, like I really like jiu-jitsu, although COVID really destroyed my plans. So hopefully next year. But yeah,
I'm going to cross fingers that it'll be this summer. We shall see.
Not wait.
Hey, Paul, any final thoughts or things to plug? Anything you want to promote? Any games that you're working on that are coming out soon? Any people that you want to give a shout out to?
I think Jason is doing really good stuff, so I'll tell people to keep an eye on what he's doing.
Jason Kaiser, right?
Yeah, sorry,
VFX
I keep referring him.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I keep referring to him as Jason, but I think I kind of assume that everyone knows, who he is and what he does. Alex is a great guy. Alex Redfish, he's a great guy. He does amazing VFX as well, especially when it comes to shapes and visual language. So, yeah, definitely go into a real-time FX forum. And, don't be afraid to ask questions and drop a comment to any threads that feels abandoned. What else? Pick up Discord, join various channels as well, and maybe be active, because I think it's very difficult to be active nowadays. But I think just being active, being part of the community might be helpful, especially if you are experienced VFX artists, helping those, at the bottom. Well, putting it at the bottom is just probably not the right way, but people who are just starting out and who would like to progress a bit quicker, it might be a good idea. Definitely listen to Real-Time FX forum. Well, the Real-Time, your podcast, essentially. I think there's a lot of good knowledge, and I listened to those in the past. So I think there's a really, really good knowledge there. Just keep an eye on upcoming games. I think Diablo 4 will be amazing. I cannot wait. They just announced it's not going to come in 21, which is a bummer, but hey, gotta wait.
Hey, there's plenty of new games coming out to look forward to. Rock on, Paul. Man, hey, this has been an awesome interview. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Travis. I mean, it was a blast, and I think we should do it a bit more often, to be honest. Thank you.
Man. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for listening to today's episode with Pawel. I really enjoyed talking with him, and it's super cool to hear how all these different types of visual effects artists, no matter where you are in the world, still share the same passion and enthusiasm and excitement for the craft as Pawel showed us today. I really want to encourage you to continue to connect with other artists like Pawel, because right now we are all suffering from emotional fatigue. And this mental breakdown with the pandemic is really straining our relationships with our own art, and our need to be connected with humans and each other has never been more needed. So pick up that phone, type out that email, connect on social media, and talk with artists. You will go so far when you share your love for the craft with others. Until next time, everybody, rock on.